Ciao, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome back at my next video on my YouTube channel or any other platform. I'm going to continue in the topic of modal or auxiliary verbs, and as I promised this time, shall, will, should, would, could, and could. I'm going to actually explain in depth what it means, how they are going to use it, how they use it in different situations. And we start with will. Will is actually will. Will is modal auxiliary verb, and we use it for the future tense as actually the verb which we use to express something what is going to happen in the future. It's the most basic and common form used to express the future tense. So the structure of will is easy because it is the same in all the pronouns, in all the subjects, and you don't need to change anything about actually the verb which is following the will. So this is very easy. But when we use it basically, as I said, for sort of confirmation or sort of expression of the future situation or act. Yeah, we use it as also in negative when we actually add not, and we use it as the same. Actually, we just use it in a different word order and syntax, so with a question. So we use it to describe the future, to make a prediction, what actually will be in the future, what maybe will be in the future, to express a decision made at the moment of the speaking. So this is something which I'm going to actually express more and explain more in tenses and in some topics with tenses. But yes, with will we express actually decision made at the moment. So for instance, when I decide that I'm going to do something right here, right now, then I use will, yes? So for instance, I'll have the vegetable soup, please. The phone rings and I say, I will answer it. I say it to the family or someone who I live with. So that's the plan. We'll check the sales figures and you can check the expenses. Or Jean's over there, I will just go and say hello before we'll leave. So things like that I decide right in this moment. Then we use it for making request, when we are making promises and offers, and to describe the consequence of a conditional phrase. So it has a lot of functions. The examples, I started with this, but for instance, in the future, the example is we will be at the hotel until 8 p.m. The trains will be late today because of the bad weather, which is reality. How long will you stay in Hong Kong? Because it is for the future. He will send us the report when he has all the data. So he will send us because that's the future. The world population will grow a lot in the next 50 years. So it means that this is some kind of prediction. We just don't know, but yes, we predict. I think I will stay in this company until I retire. This is prediction, we don't know. And check it out when we actually start a sentence with I think, I suppose, I reckon, I just have the intention, I suggest. Then we usually, in the second part of the sentence, we use will, because we just predict. She doesn't think she will pass the exam. Who do you think will win the tournament? Because that's in the future. Will you bring some more water, please? So this is sort of request. Will you come to the appointment with me? Will you be quiet, please? I'm trying to make an important phone call. You will give me a hand with dinner, won't you? So this is sort of like a prediction and a request in one. Or when we promise something. I will call you when I get home. She will help you finish the work, don't worry. We'll send you the goods as soon as possible. Lee and Kim will show you around the city. And to describe actually some consequence of the conditional and the future, so this is basically used in a first conditional, because in the second part of the sentence we use always will when it's actually first conditional. If it rains, I will take my umbrella. This is always true basically, and is basically very highly probable that I will do it. If they win the next match, they will go through to the finals. Will she come to dinner if I invite her? We won't mind if you arrive late. So these are all actually situations when will will be used in these situations. So be careful, will is one of the basic modal verbs. Shall. Shall is basically used nowadays more in the legal English and in British English and in questions with the first person singular or plural. So it's actually getting to be somehow skipped or omitted, especially in American English. So shall is important, but in only some parts of English and in some situations. In the past, shall was often used as an alternative to will, and many actually older books and many historical books, literature and Shakespeare times texts, they use shall very often, and shall was actually alternative. And you can find many examples still in the older books, but in modern English we usually prefer will for affirmative and negative sentences, and however we still use this shall, especially in British English, with questions with I and we, so always just the first person singular or plural, especially in British English, as I said. For instance, shall I help you? Shall I open the window? It's very polite, and in these sentences, when I ask if I should do something, if I shall something, so then I use shall, yeah? Shall I open? Shall I help you? We shall help these people. And of course, then negative form, and we just added not, yeah? We shall not help these people. I shall not open the window now. So it's not very common, only in some contexts and in legal English, because in legal English in sentences they still use shall as a part of the sort of gibberish in this particular field. Shall I help you? Shall we help you? Shall you help? Shall we help? Shall I make some lunch? Shall we help you with your bags? Where shall I drop you off? Shall I drop you off outside of your office? Shall I water your plants while you are away? So sort of offers, sort of like polite offers. Or to make suggestions. For instance, shall we go to the park together? Shall we have something to eat later? Who shall we invite to the party? What shall we do after we have watched the film? So always with I or we when we are together in the group, so they use this context as a very polite suggestion, or to express formal obligations, or to make a promise, or to describe the future very formally. So it's very similar with will, but basically it is used particularly in a little bit different context. We shall overcome this difficult moment. The test shall be carried out by an independent body. So that's very formal, yeah. Or I shall never forget the help you gave me. I shall not be late. We shall do everything we can to solve the problem. So sort of promise. Or applicants shall provide evidence of their qualifications. Guests shall not remove anything from the rooms. So sort of suggestions, obligations, quite formal stuff. So that's actually basic difference between will and shall, and a general rule: use will for affirmative and negative sentences about the future, and use will for the requests to. And if you want to make an offer or suggestion very formally, very formally in a question form, then we use actually formal statement with shall. So that's the basic difference, yeah. Let's go now to actually could, would, should, which is also sometimes like mixed up, and it's basically quite easy because should we use for expressing something which is probable, that it can happen, it might, to ask questions if we should or should not do something, and to show obligation, give recommendation or even an opinion. So when you give advice, some recommendation, when you give a sort of like suggestion, an opinion, what the other party should or should not do, then we use should. For instance, you should stop eating fast food. You should stop smoking. You should go for walks more often. We should go to the park tomorrow. He should go to the pharmacy first thing in the morning. So things also that we say to ourselves or to the other party, we should or should not do, sort of recommendation and a suggestion. Or with questions, should we turn left at this street? Shouldn't you be getting ready for the work? So also in negative form, you can actually ask the other party what should be done or should not. Or to express something is probably John should be here by 2 p.m. He should be bringing Jennifer with him. So we just predict. So basically he should do something and we agreed on that in the past, so it should be done. So should, recommendation, suggestion, opinion, sort of obligation, but you just actually give advice to somebody. That's the basic. Would is basically, would is conditional. So would be used with who, what, where, when, why, or how. Not always, but often also how. Might be or may be in the future, and what is actually just condition. Or to make a polite request, when you want to be very polite. Or in hypothetical situations, what would be, maybe. And to ask questions. For instance, how would you do that? So you don't ask actually how will you do that, because will is very certain. When you say will, that's certain. How will you do that? How would you do that is much more polite. And how would is just condition. Yeah, it's just how would you do that? What would you do if? This is a second conditional. When would we have time to do that? Who would want to do it in that time? So just would is sort of polite and sort of like what is just probable. Yeah. Or would you like any tea? Would you like anything else? Would you like is very common. I think a lot of people just use it in a very polite way. In hypothetical situations, if I had a lot of money, I would like to own a farm one day, or I would love to buy a boat one day. So what just hypothetically in the second conditional might be or not, and what I would do maybe in the future, hypothetically. Or in questions, would you like fries or salad? Would you like to join us tonight? This is this polite questions, polite request. So would is basically also very common. We use it in a polite, also formal way, because when we use will, which is actually like the base form of a will, because would is basically already the past form, then it's very certain, very clear in the future. But the would is not very clear and it's much more polite. And the last one is could, and I think I have mentioned it already in the previous video, but could is basically to suggest a possibility, and it's very polite. Whose journal is this? It could be Nelly's journal, so that's just possibility. And could A be the answer is definitely not B or D. So just could, the possibility. And the next function is making a polite request, a very, or already even formal request, and very polite. Could you please move this box? Could you please pass me the pen? Could you please pass that paper to me? Could you please? Very, very, very common and very formal and very often used in a very polite requests. Using the word could to respond to the request we made in the last example would suggest that you could do it, but you might not really want to. If you agree to the request, then you use the word can. So what is actually interesting that could you please, yes, we don't have to actually be so polite when we are answering. So I would say, yeah, I can do it. So that's not a problem to answer with can when you don't want to be so much polite. I think that's actually basic explanation and making it more clear for you. So would, could, should, shall, will, and basically with the previous video, the first video of modal and auxiliary verb, I think this is all what I can explain you how to use would, could, should, shall, will, can, can't, could, couldn't, may, might, must, mustn't, don't have to, doesn't have to. It seems that it's really difficult, but basically not when you actually just make some sort of folders in your mind and trying to figure out how they use it in different situations. You have many examples, and if you are going to listen to this video more times, I think you can get it easily and rather fast. Thank you very much. See you next time.